The history of the United States is vast and covers several key periods, including indigenous civilizations, European colonization, the formation of an independent republic, and a journey to becoming a global superpower. Here's a condensed timeline of key events and eras. Pre-colonial period, before 1492. Indigenous peoples, including the Iroquois, Apache, Navajo, Sioux, and others, lived in the region for thousands of years before European contact. These groups had diverse languages, cultures, and societies, some of which built large cities and complex agricultural systems, such as the Mississippian civilization. Colonial era, 1492 to 1775. 1492. Christopher Columbus's arrival in the Caribbean marked the beginning of European exploration and colonization. Spain, France, and England established colonies. England's 1607 Jamestown settlement in Virginia was one of the first successful English colonies. Colonization led to displacement and conflict with indigenous populations, and the Atlantic slave trade brought enslaved Africans to work in North America, particularly in southern colonies. Revolutionary period, 1775 to 1783. 1775 to 1783. The American Revolutionary War was fought between the 13 British colonies and Great Britain. 1776. The Declaration of Independence was adopted on July 4th, proclaiming the colony's intent to form a new nation. 1783. Britain recognized American independence in the Treaty of Paris, establishing the United States. Early Republic and expansion, 1783 to 1861. 1787. The U.S. Constitution was drafted, creating a federal system of government, and in 1789 George Washington became the first president. The young nation rapidly expanded westward, acquiring land through purchases, like the Louisiana Purchase in 1803, and conflicts with indigenous tribes. 1830s. Policies like the Indian Removal Act forced Native Americans to relocate, leading to the Trail of Tears. 1846 to 1848. The Mexican-American War led to the U.S. acquiring present-day California, Nevada, Utah, Arizona, and New Mexico. Civil War and Reconstruction, 1861 to 1877. 1861 to 1865. Tensions over slavery, states' rights, and economic differences led to the Civil War between Northern, Union, and Southern, Confederate states. 1863. The Emancipation Proclamation declared enslaved people in Confederate states to be free. 1865. The Union won, slavery was abolished with the 13th Amendment, and the Reconstruction period began, aiming to rebuild and integrate Southern states and newly freed slaves into society. Industrialization and progressivism, 1877 to 1914. Rapid industrialization transformed the U.S. into an economic powerhouse. Railroads, factories, and urbanization expanded significantly. Labor movements, women's suffrage campaigns, and progressive reforms targeted social injustices and corruption. The Spanish-American War in 1898 established the U.S. as an emerging imperial power, with territories in Puerto Rico, Guam, and the Philippines. World Wars and the Great Depression, 1914 to 1945, 1917 to 1918. The U.S. entered World War I, helping secure an Allied victory. 1929. The Great Depression led to widespread economic hardship. 1933. Franklin D. Roosevelt's New Deal created social and economic reforms. 1941 to 1945. The U.S. joined World War II after the attack on Pearl Harbor and played a crucial role in the Allied victory. The war ended with the use of atomic bombs on Japan. Cold War era, 1945 to 1991. The U.S. emerged from World War II as a superpower, competing with the Soviet Union in the Cold War. This period saw events like the Korean War, the Cuban Missile Crisis, the Vietnam War, and a race to space. The civil rights movement in the 1950s and 1960s fought against racial segregation, leading to landmark legislation. 1989 to 1991. The Cold War ended with the dissolution of the Soviet Union. Modern era, 1991, present. The U.S. remained a global leader in the post-Cold War era, dealing with challenges like terrorism, economic recessions, and climate change. The September 11, 2001 attacks led to the War on Terror, including the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq. Recent years have seen advances in technology, shifts in political landscapes, and movements advocating for social justice, environmental sustainability, and economic reform. The United States, a nation of transformation and influence. The United States of America, a country that spans from coast to coast on the North American continent, is known globally for its influence in politics, culture, economy, and innovation. From its inception as a group of 13 colonies seeking independence from British rule to its present-day role as a leading superpower, the U.S. has undergone remarkable transformations. Its journey, marked by both extraordinary achievements and profound challenges, reveals a complex narrative of resilience, diversity, and ambition. This essay explores the United States' historical evolution, the cultural diversity that defines it, its contributions to global advancement, and its role in shaping contemporary issues. A revolutionary beginning. The founding of the United States was rooted in a revolutionary vision. The American colonies, dissatisfied with British rule, particularly the imposition of taxes without representation, sought independence. This revolutionary spirit culminated in the signing of the Declaration of Independence in 1776, a bold proclamation of the colony's intention to create a sovereign nation built on the principles of liberty, equality, and self-governance. The Revolutionary War followed, and after years of conflict, the Treaty of Paris in 1783 formally recognized the United States as an independent nation. This victory was not only a military triumph, but also a validation of the values that continue to shape the American identity. The establishment of the U.S. Constitution in 1787 provided the framework for a democratic government with a separation of powers, checks and balances, and a Bill of Rights. These foundational principles fostered a unique political system that has inspired democracies worldwide. However, the early years of the United States were not without contradiction. While the new nation espoused ideals of freedom, it was simultaneously built on the institution of slavery, with millions of African Americans denied basic human rights. This foundational paradox would eventually erupt into one of the country's most defining events: the Civil War. Civil War and social reform. The Civil War, 1861 to 1865, was a turning point in U.S. history, fundamentally reshaping the nation. Fought over issues including states' rights and, crucially, slavery, the war resulted in the preservation of the Union and the abolition of slavery. The 13th Amendment formally ended slavery, but the struggle for civil rights for African Americans continued. Reconstruction, the period following the Civil War, saw attempts to integrate formerly enslaved people into society as equal citizens. However, resistance to these changes led to the rise of segregation and discrimination, particularly in the South, where Jim Crow laws enforced racial inequality for decades. In the 20th century, the civil rights movement emerged as a powerful force for social justice. Leaders like Martin Luther King Jr., Rosa Parks, and many others led efforts to dismantle racial segregation and secure equal rights. Landmark legislation, including the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Rights Act of 1965, legally ended segregation and sought to protect voting rights for all citizens. This movement not only transformed American society but also inspired social justice movements worldwide, reinforcing the U.S. commitment to the ideals of equality and justice. Cultural diversity and innovation. One of the most defining features of the United States is its cultural diversity. From its early days as a destination for European settlers to its status as a melting pot in the modern era, the U.S. has welcomed waves of immigrants from every corner of the globe. This diversity has shaped American culture, resulting in a vibrant fusion of languages, traditions, and beliefs. Today, the U.S. is home to a tapestry of cultures, with significant contributions from African American, Hispanic, Asian American, Native American, and countless other communities. Each has played an essential role in enriching American society through food, art, literature, music, and more. This diversity has also fueled innovation, with the U.S. emerging as a global leader in science, technology, and business. The country's embrace of new ideas and entrepreneurial spirit has led to groundbreaking advancements in fields like medicine, space exploration, and information technology. Silicon Valley, for example, has become synonymous with technological innovation, producing companies that have transformed how people communicate, work, and access information. American ingenuity has driven the development of inventions like the airplane, the internet, and, more recently, advanced artificial intelligence, making the U.S. a leader in global innovation. A role in global affairs. The United States' role on the global stage has evolved significantly over the past century. Following World War II, the U.S. emerged as a superpower and took on a leading role in international organizations like the United Nations and NATO. Throughout the Cold War, the U.S. was engaged in a strategic and ideological conflict with the Soviet Union, which led to interventions in places like Korea and Vietnam, as well as diplomatic standoffs such as the Cuban Missile Crisis. Despite controversies surrounding some of its actions, the U.S. has consistently promoted democratic values and human rights abroad. In recent years, the U.S. has continued to play a significant role in global issues, from fighting terrorism to addressing climate change. The country has faced challenges in balancing its international responsibilities with its domestic priorities, but it remains an influential force in global diplomacy and humanitarian efforts. American foreign policy, while complex, is driven by a commitment to maintaining stability and fostering alliances. Contemporary challenges and the future. As it moves further into the 21st century, the United States faces several critical challenges. Domestically, political polarization has intensified, leading to debates over issues such as immigration, healthcare, gun control, and economic inequality. Additionally, the rise of social movements like Black Lives Matter and #MeToo has sparked national conversations about racial justice and gender equality. These challenges highlight ongoing social struggles but also reflect the democratic nature of American society, where activism and public discourse drive change. Another pressing issue is climate change. The U.S. has taken steps toward environmental sustainability, such as investing in renewable energy sources and committing to international climate agreements. However, the country faces the task of balancing economic growth with environmental responsibility, a challenge that will shape its future role in the global community. The history of the United States is one of dynamic change, marked by both inspiring achievements and significant struggles. Founded on revolutionary ideals, the U.S. has continually redefined itself, adapting to new realities and advancing its core principles. Its cultural diversity, spirit of innovation, and commitment to democratic values have made it a unique and influential nation on the world stage. While challenges remain, the United States' capacity for resilience and transformation offers hope that it will continue to evolve and contribute positively to the global community. In its ongoing journey, the U.S. stands as both a reflection of its complex past and a beacon of possibility for the future. Economic transformation and the American dream. The concept of the American dream, the belief that anyone, regardless of background, can achieve success through hard work, has been a powerful narrative shaping U.S. society. This ideal has motivated millions to seek opportunities in America, where the economy has evolved through various stages, from agrarian roots to industrial power and, today, to a knowledge-based economy. During the Industrial Revolution, the United States shifted from an agricultural society to a major industrial force. Factories, railroads, and urban growth transformed how people lived and worked. Following the hardships of the Great Depression, the post-World War II era marked a period of economic boom, with high levels of employment, increased wages, and greater access to home ownership and education. This prosperity enabled many to access the American dream, especially for the generation often called the baby boomers. However, economic inequality remains a pressing issue. Globalization and technological advancements have created both challenges and opportunities, as jobs in manufacturing have decreased, while those in technology and service sectors have expanded. The U.S. continues to grapple with how to balance growth and opportunity across different socio-economic groups. While the country remains a land of opportunity, ensuring equal access to this opportunity remains a critical national conversation. Education as the foundation of progress. education has played a vital role in the growth and development of the United States. From the early emphasis on public education to the establishment of world-renowned universities, the U.S. has long valued education as a means to empower individuals and drive national progress. In the 19th century, reforms such as compulsory schooling laws made education more accessible, contributing to a more literate and skilled population. By the 20th century, initiatives like the GI Bill expanded access to higher education, enabling a generation of veterans to attend college and secure middle-class jobs, fueling economic prosperity. Today, the U.S. is home to some of the world's top universities, drawing students from around the globe. However, the nation faces challenges in ensuring equitable access to quality education, as public schools vary widely in resources and outcomes. The rising cost of college education has also made higher education less accessible for many Americans, sparking debates about student debt and the role of government in education funding. Infrastructure and innovation. American infrastructure has been a pillar of its success. The Transcontinental Railroad, completed in 1869, connected the country's east and west coasts, facilitating trade, migration, and economic growth. In the 20th century, the construction of the interstate highway system under President Dwight D. Eisenhower revolutionized travel and commerce, enabling faster movement of goods and people across the nation. The U.S. has also been a hub of technological and scientific innovation, with government-funded projects like NASA's space program achieving milestones that inspired the world, including the 1969 moon landing. Silicon Valley became synonymous with the tech revolution in the 1980s and 1990s, leading to the rise of influential companies like Apple, Microsoft, Google, and Facebook. Today, maintaining and modernizing infrastructure is a significant challenge. With aging roads, bridges, and public transit systems, and the growing need for green energy sources, the U.S. is investing in sustainable infrastructure to meet future demands and address climate concerns. The push toward high-speed internet for all, renewable energy, and smart cities shows that innovation remains central to the country's goals. The arts and cultural influence. The arts have been a profound part of America's identity and a reflection of its diversity. The U.S. has produced globally influential art forms, including jazz, rock and roll, hip-hop, and Hollywood cinema. Artists and creators like Louis Armstrong, Elvis Presley, Beyoncé, and filmmakers from Orson Welles to Ava DuVernay have left indelible marks on global culture. American literature, too, has tackled themes of identity, freedom, and the human condition, with writers like Mark Twain, Toni Morrison, and Ernest Hemingway offering perspectives that resonate universally. American pop culture has permeated the world, making the U.S. a cultural powerhouse. Hollywood movies, television series, and American brands are known in nearly every country, fostering cultural exchange and shaping global perceptions of the U.S. Through art, literature, music, and media, American culture continues to influence and be influenced by the world. The influence of American ideals on the world stage. The ideals of democracy, freedom, and human rights have been central to the American ethos. While the U.S. itself has struggled to live up to these ideals, it has promoted them abroad, encouraging democratic movements and supporting the establishment of democratic institutions around the world. This influence began to solidify post-World War II, as the U.S. supported the rebuilding of Europe through the Marshall Plan, opposed authoritarian regimes, and established international organizations like the United Nations. Despite these efforts, American foreign policy has been complex, sometimes marked by interventionist actions that have sparked debate and criticism, especially when outcomes in countries like Vietnam, Iraq, and Afghanistan have been turbulent. Today, the U.S. continues to play a major role in promoting democratic values, though it faces a world where other powers are emerging and multilateral cooperation is increasingly important. The question of how best to lead in an interconnected world remains central to U.S. foreign policy. Challenges and resilience in modern America. Modern America faces numerous challenges that reflect both its strengths and the areas where it must adapt. Issues like political polarization, racial inequality, immigration policy, economic disparities, climate change, and healthcare access are subjects of national debate. Each of these challenges tests the country's commitment to its ideals and its resilience in the face of adversity. At the same time, America's diversity and openness to new ideas are sources of strength. Social movements, often driven by grassroots efforts, continue to push the country toward a more inclusive and equitable society. The U.S. has a long history of resilience, with each challenge prompting introspection, reform, and progress. Today, that resilience remains key to addressing the complexities of a rapidly changing world. America as an evolving experiment in democracy. Since its founding, the United States has been characterized as an experiment in democracy. The Founding Fathers conceived a republic unlike any other of their time, driven by the Enlightenment ideals of freedom, reason, and the belief that government derives its power from the consent of the governed. The U.S. Constitution and the Bill of Rights laid a framework that protected freedoms and limited government powers while allowing the nation to grow and adapt through amendments. Each generation has revisited the meaning of American democracy, debating issues around individual liberties, states' rights, and the balance of power among the branches of government. The expansion of democratic rights has been one of the country's defining stories. The nation has continually extended voting rights and civil protections, from the abolition of slavery to the granting of women's suffrage, and, more recently, to the recognition of LGBTQ+ rights. Yet, the U.S. remains an unfinished experiment. Issues like voter suppression, gerrymandering, and campaign finance reform highlight the ongoing challenges in ensuring a fair and inclusive democracy. Debates about the Electoral College, the role of the judiciary, and the influence of lobbyists show that the framework of American democracy continues to evolve as the country adapts to new realities. The American identity, a nation of many voices. American identity has always been shaped by diversity. Unlike many nations that define themselves through a common ethnicity or religion, the United States is characterized by pluralism, a blending of countless cultures, languages, and beliefs that come together to form a unique identity. This diversity has created both strength and complexity, as different groups have sought to integrate their heritage with the broader American ethos. The concept of e pluribus unum, out of many, one, symbolizes the nation's effort to unify these different voices into a shared identity while preserving individual identities. This identity has been a double-edged sword. Immigration, for example, has been a source of national strength, bringing new perspectives, skills, and cultural richness. However, it has also been a subject of controversy, with debates over immigration policy reflecting deeper questions about national identity, security, and economic policy. The U.S. has witnessed cycles of nativism, where fears of the other rise during periods of social and economic stress, followed by periods of inclusion and reform that reaffirm the value of diversity in shaping American society. America's role in a changing global landscape. As a superpower, the United States has long been a leader on the global stage. The country has often positioned itself as a promoter of democracy and a defender of human rights, shaping international organizations like the United Nations, NATO, and the World Bank. In doing so, the U.S. has championed international cooperation and economic globalization, helping to lift millions out of poverty and promote stability in regions around the world. In recent years, however, the U.S. has faced challenges to its leadership. The rise of other global powers like China, the resurgence of Russia, and shifting alliances have redefined the global balance of power. These dynamics, coupled with debates about America's role in the world, have prompted questions about how the U.S. should engage internationally. Should it remain deeply involved in global affairs, or should it pivot to prioritize domestic concerns? These questions are central to contemporary American foreign policy, as the country seeks to balance its ideals with the realities of a multipolar world. The challenges of the 21st century, such as climate change, pandemics, cybersecurity, and economic inequality, demand cooperation beyond borders. The U.S. remains a key player in addressing these issues, but it faces the question of how to foster multilateral partnerships while protecting its national interests. American foreign policy is increasingly focused on collaboration, addressing issues like climate change through international agreements and fostering economic partnerships that strengthen the global economy. Science, technology, and the future of innovation. Innovation has been a cornerstone of American development, with the nation consistently leading in scientific discovery and technological advancement. From the Wright brothers' first flight to the invention of the Internet, American innovation has transformed industries and influenced global progress. In fields like medicine, aerospace, computing, and renewable energy, the U.S. continues to make groundbreaking strides, propelled by institutions such as NASA, the National Institutes of Health, NIH, and a thriving private sector. Today, new challenges and opportunities lie ahead. The U.S. faces increased competition in technology from countries like China, especially in fields like artificial intelligence, 5G, and quantum computing. This competition has spurred discussions about the importance of investing in science and technology education, research funding, and infrastructure. As the world moves toward a digital future, the U.S. grapples with ethical questions about technology, from data privacy and cybersecurity to the societal impacts of artificial intelligence. American tech giants like Google, Amazon, and Tesla lead the way in shaping the future, but questions about the power and influence of these corporations on society continue to emerge. The environment and sustainability in America's future. Climate change has become one of the most pressing issues of the modern era, with the U.S. playing a key role both as a contributor to greenhouse gas emissions and as a leader in potential solutions. The nation has experienced the tangible effects of climate change, including more frequent natural disasters, wildfires, and shifts in weather patterns that affect agriculture and water resources. As a major global economy, the U.S. has a critical role in leading efforts to reduce carbon emissions and transition to a sustainable future. There is significant momentum in the U.S. toward renewable energy, with advancements in solar, wind, and electric vehicles. The government, private sector, and scientific community are increasingly focused on reducing dependence on fossil fuels, promoting green technology, and investing in sustainable infrastructure. However, the path toward sustainability faces challenges, including political divisions, economic costs, and debates over environmental regulations. Balancing economic growth with environmental stewardship will be a central issue for America's future. American values and social progress. Throughout its history, the United States has been both celebrated and critiqued for its values of freedom, individualism, and opportunity. These values have shaped not only its domestic policies but also its foreign policy and global influence. At its core, America's identity is rooted in the belief that every individual has the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, a principle enshrined in its founding documents. However, living up to these ideals has required continuous social progress. From the abolition of slavery to the fight for women's suffrage, civil rights, LGBTQ+ rights, and most recently movements for racial justice and gender equality, the U.S. has grappled with aligning its actions with its ideals. Social movements in America have often led to legislative and cultural shifts, with activists and communities pushing the nation to fulfill its promises of equality and justice for all. The idea of American exceptionalism. The concept of American exceptionalism has been central to the national identity, suggesting that the United States is unique in its mission, values, and role on the global stage. Rooted in the early Puritan notion of a city upon a hill, the idea posits that America is a beacon of freedom, democracy, and opportunity. Throughout history, this belief has influenced how Americans see themselves and how the U.S. interacts with the world. Leaders have often invoked American exceptionalism to justify both domestic policies and foreign interventions, presenting the U.S. as a defender of liberty and a force for good. However, this notion has faced scrutiny, especially in recent decades. Critics argue that exceptionalism can lead to a sense of moral superiority, blinding the nation to its own flaws and the complexity of international relations. Furthermore, historical events like slavery, the mistreatment of indigenous peoples, and periods of imperialism challenged the notion of a morally exceptional America. Nonetheless, many Americans continue to view their country as a unique experiment in freedom and democracy, and this self-concept inspires a continual striving toward progress and the extension of rights to all citizens. The United States stands as a dynamic, multifaceted nation whose story is one of transformation, challenge, and reinvention. With its rich history, diverse population, and complex social fabric, the U.S. has both shaped and been shaped by global forces, embodying a blend of contradictions and aspirations. While it faces significant challenges, including social inequality, political polarization, and the need for sustainable development, the resilience of its people and the adaptability of its institutions offer hope. The U.S. remains an evolving experiment in democracy and a beacon of possibility, striving to live up to the ideals on which it was founded. In a world that is increasingly interconnected, the United States has the opportunity to lead in fostering a more inclusive, equitable, and sustainable future. As it continues to confront the trials of a changing world, the United States' journey will reflect not only its past achievements but also its enduring commitment to progress and the promise of a more just society. Through its ongoing evolution, the U.S. reaffirms the power of democratic values and the unending pursuit of a more perfect union. The United States is celebrated for its innovation, diversity, and resilience. It's a country built on ideals of freedom and democracy, where people from all over the world come to pursue opportunities and new beginnings. Known for its influence in science, technology, and culture, the U.S. has shaped global trends through groundbreaking inventions, cultural exports, and leadership in international affairs. Its natural landscapes, from national parks to coastal cities, add to its beauty and allure. While challenges exist, the American spirit is defined by a drive for progress, adaptability, and the promise of equal opportunity.